Hello, everybody. I'm Aaron Klein with the Research Development Office. We're here today to talk a little bit about the Neuroscience Development and Mental Wellbeing Ideas Lab. So this is the second Ideas Lab that we're doing here at the University of Iowa. I'm excited to work with Andy again from No Innovation and Ted and crew to help pull this off. So I'll just jump right in. I'm going to turn it over to Andy. He's going to tell us a little bit about the Ideas Labs, and then Ted will tell us a little bit about the specifics of what we're actually trying to focus on. So, Andy.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. I will be brief, but let me preface this first of all to say Aaron has all of my contact details. And if over the next few days you suddenly have questions about the Ideas Labs and you would like to know more, by all means, get in touch with me. So the essence of an Ideas Lab, and we've been running them now for getting on for 20 years, is to bring together a diverse group of people to work on what's often referred to as a wicked problem. And the idea of a wicked problem is one that is complex and multifaceted, and more often than not, people don't actually agree on what the definition of the problem is, let alone how one might go about solving it. And Ideas Labs emerged as a response to the difficulties that researchers were finding in really bringing interdisciplinary research projects together that produced novel and unusual research proposals. And so one of the funding agencies decided to tackle this head on, picked a wicked problem, and started recruiting people who were at often the periphery of what that problem might typically encompass. And this is really important because over all this time, the thing that has stood out the most in developing successful Ideas Labs is that we need as wide a range of people as possible to get involved. And I emphasize this because when Ted talks about the question, you may look at it and go, well, it's not my core area of research. We're not worried about that. What we're worried about is, do you find this intriguing? Are there echoes in what Ted will talk about that you think about, yeah, there are aspects of my work or just aspects of areas that I'm interested in that would make conversations around this exciting for me. So we don't need you to be operating within specific disciplines. We need your curiosity and your willingness to have conversations at the intersection of different disciplines around this question. Now, at a structural level, there is a process that we go through, but very broadly, we start off getting everyone to help define the different questions that might be implicit within this broader wicked challenge. And then we'll invite you to self-organize around the questions that you find particularly interesting, which will result usually in small teams forming. And then over the next few weeks in these little time blocks, and basically we'll work together for 2 or 3 hours a week over 8 weeks. We'll move from starting off with your team that has formed around shared interests with a question up to the stage of having sketch proposals. And I emphasize this because this is a very rapid process, which is intended to produce ideas that are risky but exciting. So we don't need them to be to the normal standard that you would send off to NSF or NIH at this point. What we're looking for is, do you have the nugget of a really interesting idea? And are you working with people that you could see being a really effective team? So in summary, this is an exciting process for generating novel ideas. And also you'll get to meet some really cool people who are interested in the problem from different perspectives. So having said all that about the process, let me pass over to Ted to talk about what the actual challenge is.
Thanks, Andy, and thanks, Aaron, for the opportunity to talk about this Ideas Lab. And really, this Ideas Lab kind of builds on the collaborative and creative community that we have at Iowa. And I hope that we can really involve people from throughout the university in this discussions. This Ideas Lab, as we mentioned, is focused on neuroscience and mental health. We're seeking to understand how we can assess and understand mental health and connect it to the physiological changes that occur in the brain and the body. It's particularly striking to see the brain grow. We see infants where the brain grows, it doubles in size in the first year of life as infants explore the world and develop ways to move and to develop syllables and eventually communicate. But this development continues way into adulthood, even into the 20s and 30s, as we know when we think about our college students who are learning to live together in a community, many for the first time. And with COVID, that's going to be especially challenging because we're going to have both a year of freshmen, first year freshmen. We're also going to have second year freshmen who would usually be called sophomores. And so understanding how this impacts mental health is something we really want to try to understand. In other fields of medicine, we have measures. We have measures like blood pressure, body weight, blood tests that tell us what's going on in our body and what's happening physiologically. In mental health, we really don't have those sorts of measures. If we have a child that's throwing a fit, how do you know if that's atypical or what all children do? And so we're trying to think about how we can assess mental health and brain development, particularly in children and adolescents where this change is dramatic. But it's also worth noting this continues through adulthood. And we can see when we get individuals that present to the clinic with a cognitive disorder like Alzheimer's disease or Parkinson's disease, if you look back 10 years earlier, you may see signs of sleep disturbances or metabolic disturbances that actually were the beginnings of the origins of these neurological and psychiatric diseases. So we're seeking to put together a community that will hopefully span from creative artists and writers to data scientists and social workers and educators to help think about this problem, which I think is really one of the grand challenges of science, which is how does behavior develop and how can we measure it? What I'm particularly excited by with this Ideas Lab, many of you that have heard me give talks before will know that I end with a slide, and that slide has a quote on it from Francis Crick. And I think that this Ideas Lab really very much does what Francis Crick said. What Francis said was about the discovery of DNA, that it's true that by blundering about, we stumbled on gold. But the fact remains, we were looking for gold. So I hope you'll help us in this process to look for gold in this case, which we think is about the brain and neuroscience and development and mental well-being. And we're looking forward to working together. Thanks a lot.